What's up, everybody? Welcome back to All Things Nerdy with Nate and Joe. I'm Nate. That's Joe. Oh, crushed it. I love the fact the mirror thing. Yeah, Nate, Joe. Today we have a really awesome topic and fun topic that we're going to talk about. As y'all both know, Joe and I work IT adjacent, I guess. We help companies find and place some top tier talent, but we love technology. Joe has like a master's of software engineering. I'm AWS certified, Scrum Master certified. So the topics that we're going to talk about today, we both find very interesting. And it's probably actually appropriate for LinkedIn, which is not something we commonly do. So excited to jump into it and talk about it. We got Jade with us. It's going to be a blast. I'm excited to jump into it. Joe?
Yep. So super excited to have Jade on. We always kind of have banter back and forth on LinkedIn. So people have probably seen, her commenting on my stuff, me commenting on her stuff, like what the materials of Rust are. She thought that was hilarious. I could just tell. But super excited to get into this and let Jade kind of share some of her passion. Because if you're on her page for more than 10 seconds, you're going to know that she's super passionate about Agile. And it shows. I mean, she's got the top LinkedIn voice up there as well, so she just gives a lot back to the community. But without further ado, Jade, talk nerdy to us.
Hey guys, so it's Jade here, and I guess I'll just quickly talk about who I am. I'm a software engineer currently at Microsoft, and I really a few of my interests as a software engineer is all really focused on Agile and software and DevOps as well. And the reason why is because I remember like when I first started becoming a software engineer in like the first couple of companies that I went into, I didn't really know what those things were. And in the way that we worked, it wasn't really typically that way. We would get in the second company I worked in, we worked on an ERP system, and we would get like a scope of work, which would basically be saying, this is what you need to deliver. And the things that you need to deliver would typically be costed for like a few weeks of or like a few months of work that you needed to do all up front. And then you would go and deliver those requirements. And that was what was pretty normal. But one thing that I noticed about the system just in general was that it was quite difficult to change. It was an ERP system, so it was a system of record, and any changes that you made was really difficult. It wasn't really built in a continuous integration and continuous delivery way, and we didn't really do things like we didn't really have retros, or we didn't really have ceremonies or anything like that. And then I moved from that company and moved to another company where I ended up learning a lot about Agile and about DevOps. But the company that I moved to still did those things, not to the best of their ability. So we would have 6 week to 6 month delivery cycles. Things were slow. Things would take days to build. And whilst we had great training in terms of we got professional Scrum certifications and we got into a flow of working in a very agile way, the bottleneck became that we couldn't deliver in an agile way because of the way that the system was built. It was built without testing. It was built without stable continuous integration and continuous deployment. And at the time, I didn't really know like what the best way was and how, and it just felt like this was the way things were, until I moved to a company where DevOps was a thing. And so I learned how to do Agile. I learned how to do facilitation in the previous company, but I didn't really know how to do DevOps in that company. And that was a bottleneck. And then I moved to this company, which was doing DevOps, and it just all clicked. Everything was continuous integrated. Builds were done within 15 minutes and deployed to production environment, and it was all very smooth in that way. And I basically realized that was the way that I wanted to build software for the rest of my life. And so ever since then, I have really put a massive focus on whenever I create a project or whenever I start a project, making sure that we have tests in place, making sure that we have a continuous build and continuous deployment pipeline, and just making sure that things run smoothly and really caring about the quality of the code. And that has meant that the systems that have been built have generally been a lot easier to push changes to and make changes to long term. And yeah, that's really the story of where I've got that passion and where I've got that excitement from doing DevOps, seeing how not having those things versus having them isn't really important. The one other thing I really wanted to touch about is, what do I mean by agile? And I think agile has a I think a lot of people think that it means that you don't really do any planning, you don't really do any design work, and you just ship things and change things based on a whim. And that's just not factual. What I mean, and what companies typically want when they say they want agile, is they want to deploy things in a continuous way, and they want to build things in a continuous way. So it's actually more that they want DevOps, and they want, regardless of the way of delivery that they want it, they don't want to get to the end of the project and things not build and things not work. And so really agile is about understanding, or what companies want agile to be is about understanding the context of what the company's after, and okay, how can I make that context work regardless of what we call it, basically.
Yeah, I think the big thing from like an agile standpoint is, like you said, a lot of people have a kind of like a misunderstanding, right? They're like, agile should be this, but the truth is agile is being nimble, able to pivot. It gives you a structure to be able to accomplish everything that you need to, versus having to wait on a specific thing to be done to move to the next one, right? Like you have waterfall, where it's like you do this, then you do this, then you do this. Living in an agile world from a software development standpoint allows you to focus on everything all at once, but it doesn't mean that you're just pushing everything all at once, right? Like there is a structure to it, and stuff like that. And agile is a process, not an answer. And it's something that can help you in like DevOps, right? It can help you release things faster and smoother because of you get a holistic view versus like focusing on just one specific thing. But a lot of companies are just like, oh, we're agile, it means we can just throw noodles against the wall and hope it sticks, right? Like it's not a true agile mindset. They use it as an excuse to just push stuff as fast as possible.
Yeah,
exactly.
We got a comment from Steven that says, "Hola guys, just here to troll Nate."
Steven, what's up, man? Welcome back. It's been a minute. Like I remember you were like every one of them. We always like, Steven. So it's good to see you, man. I hope you're doing all right. We should catch up sometime soon when you if you don't want to troll me.
And Jay, now that you've worked in companies that have this, like how it's supposed to be done, right? Could you go back to that original company and change it for them? Could you go back, and would you have the know-how to be able to be like, hey, this is what we need to do to fix this and get it to where it needs to be? Or is it just too big of a task?
So it definitely needs to be done in an incremental way. You can't just go, okay, I can transform your entire system overnight, because that's just not what happens. When you created a product that is quite monolithic and hasn't had integration tests, hasn't had testing, and hasn't had any sort of nurturing, it is quite difficult just to go in and change it overnight. But what you can do is you can start focusing on, okay, what are the main pain points for you? Let's start creating integration tests for those pain points. And once you've got those integration tests in place, you can then think, okay, how can we refactor the system to make sure that we can change it? Because especially with monoliths and things that haven't necessarily been coded in the best way, you don't want to be starting to add unit tests and things like that inside of the system, because there's no point, because it's usually spaghetti code. But what you can do is you can add integration tests, and you can add an end-to-end test for the various different edge cases that you have, and then you can use that to be able to refactor the actual code underneath it. You can also do different strategies, such as the strangulation pattern, to start swapping things out if you've decided that you don't want to change certain parts of the system, but you want to change other parts that you think would make sense to put into a new service. So there are definitely strategies that you can do, and and then once you've done that, you can then look, okay, let's put this in the build pipeline. Is there ways that we can split this product up? It's really, really difficult to say the best way to do that for a company, because it's all very contextual depending on how their system is set up and what they've got there already. But yes, there are definitely things that you can do to do that.
And one of the big things is going to be the leadership's appetite for change. I know that I've worked with several agile coaches and just people who agile evangelists, right, who want to go and talk to these companies either from a consultant standpoint. They're like, we want to do this, and leadership's like, yeah, that all sounds awesome. They're, okay, you're gonna have to change this, and we're gonna have to do this, and they're like, we're not doing any of that.
Yeah, or they say they will, but then they actually don't really do anything.
That's usually what it is. Yeah, they want to get you in the door so they can seem like they're moving the needle forward, but once you get there, they're just going to stonewall you and not give you all the resources you need to make change within their company. That's not all of them. That's just some of what I've seen.
And that was kind of where my question was as well as like, do you feel like it's harder to do it technically or like culturally and like to get the actual people on board?
I think it's definitely bringing people along with you on the journey that is the most challenging thing, apart from when trying to move from one way of working to another, because I think unless they've seen it themselves, then it can be very hard to be like, okay, this is a great way of working, the way that you're, because what you're kind of saying when you go into that is you have to be very careful of the way that you deliver the message of, you're telling people that the way that they're delivering software isn't right. Like if you're coming in as an agile coach, that's what you are. If you're coming in as a business transformation, like that's the underlying message, and you have to be really careful of how you deliver that. You can't just be saying, okay, the way that you're delivering software is just wrong, because this is all very like subjective to what people think. What you can do is you can show them certain, like, you know, you can look at the pain points that the development teams have. You can look at what that they find particularly stressful, and you can be like, okay, let's help with that. Let's figure out, okay, and let's improve this one part. You can't just be like, okay, I'm going to completely transform the way that you're working overnight. It just doesn't work like that. But you can look at the pain points that they're having, start focusing on them, then they can be like, okay, yeah, I can see where this can go. Once you've started improving them, then you can think, okay, well, let's start improving another area. And it's all about that continuous improvement. It's all about that incremental change that happens, and that's the important thing. It's not about making them work the way that you want it. It's about finding something that works for them also.
Yeah. And Jeremy says change management is a slow and often aggravating path.
It definitely is, but I think one of the things that is quite rewarding is when you do, like, I think I put a post the other day, is it can be quite easy to create a system, a greenfield system from scratch. You know, it's very, very tempting to come in and be like, okay, we need to rewrite this whole thing. It's just not fit for use and things like that. But taking something that's there and making it better is really, really rewarding. And actually, if you do certain techniques, it is possible to do that as well.
Yeah. Have you read the Phoenix Project?
I have indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for the listeners, people who are like, what the F is the Phoenix Project, is actually a book written about DevOps that if you didn't know it is about DevOps, you wouldn't jump to that conclusion like it is, but it's so well written. It's like a story, like from a DevOps technology standpoint, it is fantastic. So, and if you have any interest in DevOps, I recommend going to read it.
I think I really like the book. I think I don't know if you've read the Unicorn Project as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's basically a continuation from the DevOps, the Phoenix Project, and it's basically from the developers' stand of view, and I really recommend that as well. It was quite a good read. I think the challenge is one of the challenges that I've seen when trying to do this DevOps transformation is just that ability to have time to train the net team that are there, because it can be quite, if the company aren't willing to give the team time to upskill in learning how to do this new way of working, that can be a challenge.
Yep. I mean, I think that goes back to the leadership aspect, the buy-in, right? Like they have to be willing to give you the resources, but also the team, the runway to understand like this is new. It takes time. It's going to take a little bit of understanding. Like it might put us a step back today, but it's going to put us 4 steps forward in a couple weeks, right? A couple months, a year, whatever it is. But that is the hardest thing because leaders inside companies, they care about the production, right? They have a job to make sure that things are done. So when they see things slowing down or you don't come in and immediately, and I think this is where a lot of DevOps and, like Agile people get caught because like they get caught in the middle between like leadership, like, hey, we brought you in to do this. I am doing it, but it takes time. Right. So then they start getting the pressure, like you have to go. And then the whole like making it fit versus being like, we're just going to rewrite everything. Like this will, increase velocity and all that by this much, right? Like we could just do this, like being able to avoid that pushback while optimizing the processes they have in place, making it work with DevOps and Agile is so important, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you briefly touched upon velocity there, and I think discussing that's a really important point because I think a lot of companies use things like velocity and story points as a way to track the teams, and they're not meant to be for anyone other than the team. And so when they're like, okay, well, this is going to affect their velocity, that isn't necessarily what the focus should be. It's no, okay, let's forget about what the velocity is. Let's focus on what we actually want. We want them to have better outputs. And the way for them to get better outputs is to try and create a system that allows for that and caters for that. And you won't have a system that caters for a better output if it's got all of these manual steps that need to happen in order to create that flow.
Yeah, it's like building a house with no foundation. Could you theoretically do it? I mean, I guess not, but like building a house with a crappy foundation, like you can do it. But if you take the time to set the foundation, your house will go up faster, less problems. It might be slower, but in the end, you'll save a lot of time and headache because you took the time to do it right. Right? What is it like? If you got the time to do it 3 times, you got the time to do it right. So just take the time to do it right.
It reminds me, actually, I had a project just a year or so ago where we were starting from scratch, and I was really, really pushing for okay, let's get the foundation sorted, let's get the tests in there, let's get the pipeline working. And I remember my boss getting really anxious about it because we got to the second sprint, and he was like, okay, I really want us to start moving more. And he was like, no, just trust us, it's gonna be fine, and we're gonna get on with the actual work soon. We're just planning everything and just making sure that we know what it is the team needs to do. And actually that a little bit of scoping up front meant that we were able to fly through the next features. He was just getting worried because he couldn't see that immediate progress. And it's all about just just trust us here, this is going to work. And that can be quite hard, but once you get through that process of building those foundations, it does make a big difference.
Yeah. Just slide them the burn down chart. Just be like, look, here you go. We got it. We got time.
In our industry, we see and experience the instant gratification a lot. Our bosses and stuff like that, they'd be like, oh, why haven't you done this? Well, that takes time, man, right? They'd be like, oh, why haven't you brought in a new client? What you mean? You want me to just magically make it happen? You want me to go create a client? It's not how it takes time. You got to build the foundation and make sure everything is right. The process is there in order to move it forward. So a lot of your job, and where all that is important, a lot of your job and what you do is getting buy-in from leadership. That is a lot of the responsibilities that come with it.
And one of the challenges that I find is that unless you have done something that can be visually seen a lot of the time, from a lot of stakeholders find user features to be more valuable than creating something that is scalable or performant. Those things that when those things are done, it's whereas when you see a nice new feature, you can click a button, yay, great job. And so as a back end, I've been like a back-end infrastructure engineer for a lot of my career, and so I felt that pain of like, okay, yeah, I've not done this pretty feature, I've just done this nice little API endpoint.
Yeah, she's just mad. She can't center a div. It's fun.
Also, fun fact.
Now, thank you.
Fun fact and shout out to my wife. She's actually doing a development boot camp right now. So just wanted to take a moment to say, great job, Steph. Woo.
Yeah,
But she's
go
doing
Steph.
full stack JavaScript. So I'm excited for her. She's like a couple weeks in it. She's loving it. And I'm hyped for her. So I wanted to give a shout out. But so Joe, can you bring up the last comment? I want to talk about that. I think that is a great question.
There you go. From Jeremy, it says, do you think there are any efforts where Agile and DevOps wouldn't work?
Environments.
Yep, sorry.
So I don't think that's the case for DevOps. I think DevOps could like pretty much work in every environment that I've seen. I guess it's just a case of whether the company think it's worth the effort versus the output. So there might be things that they think, okay, well, it's going to take, if it takes us 20 hours to automate this thing, but we're never going to like use it realistically like more than once, then there's little point to automate that in comparison to something that is done. Just say someone has to do something hourly and it's taking them like the build, like for example in my first company, just say the build's taking half a day and that's taking half a day every 2 weeks, then yes, it look to automate that. So it's all about a balance of, okay, what things are worth automating, what things are worth like putting on the backlog for later to look at. Agile, and this is where I think it's not necessarily about being agile, it's more about, I don't know if you've read like the Lean Startup or anything like that, but it's about finding the best way of working based on the context of the team. So for example, waterfall, as much as I'm not a massive fan of working for it myself, can work really, really successfully in implementation teams where they have implementations that they do for different companies, like for different customers, but the customers are so the customers are different, but the implementations are pretty much like very, very like for like, and they only had to do a few tweaks here and there to do this implementation. So waterfall can work very successfully in that kind of context, and actually you can still use DevOps in that context as well to make sure that it's easy to repeat and get up and running. Whereas, something like Scrum works really, really well for product development, where you are delivering features, because the features typically take a set amount of time, and you generally have a few of them in schedule for the next few months. And so, and then Kanban works really well for things like for things that need to be reprioritized quite quickly, or for teams that have a continuous flow, they just want to pick up the next thing. So it's always very, very contextual as to what the thing to use is, but there is typically a way of working for each team. You just have to decide the best one. I don't know if you've read the book Team Topologies, that gives a really good a good idea of the like different types of structures of what teams are, and I definitely recommend that book to read.
Okay. He also has a follow-up question as well, as like, what about companies, environments that are using legacy tech like mainframe due to high governance or cost to upgrade?
Yeah, so this is where I think you can still do DevOps without doing without having to push to production, like in terms of without having to push to your actual customer's production site. So when I'm thinking of the legacy tech, I'm thinking of my old company that had to support Nana 101 calls. Yes, you wouldn't want to push all these changes to the police system that is dealing with it, but you can still pretty much work in a continuous integration and continuous deployment way for your development environment, your testing environment, and your staging environment. So whilst you might then from your staging to your production environment decide to release that a bit longer whenever the customer wants to do their UAT testing, the teams can absolutely still work in that way.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So this is something we kind of always ask on each of our episodes, right? So say someone they're in technology, but they're not in DevOps. How would you recommend a complete newbie to kind of jump into DevOps? Like what would be the first step? How would you recommend it? Whether it be like career or maybe they just want to learn more.
So I think DevOps is a spectrum. Like it encompasses a lot of things. So it really depends on where they are in terms of their skill sets. So someone who's got quite strong development skills would probably need to learn more about the infrastructure side and the operational side of how to deploy their code and how to get the code up and running. Someone who has more operational and infrastructure skills would need to do the opposite. So it really just depends on where they are in their journey. And if they are in neither of those journeys, I would definitely recommend going the development route first, getting familiar with how to get applications up and running. Once you're familiar with how to get applications up and running, you can like, okay, how do I automate this so that I don't need to keep repeating this?
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, not that I could disagree and argue with you at all because you would destroy me. But I mean, yeah, in my mind, like that's how I would see it working as well too. So that's great.
Are there any of your favorite resources that you would recommend? Like other, of course, than your own personal like blog and YouTube. Like, are there other resources that you've used that you would say like for a new person starting out, like you definitely recommend?
So when I was learning a lot about Docker and Kubernetes, I use LinkedIn Learning for the different courses for how to get up and running with those things. I also used a cloud guru to get familiar with Azure and how to work with Azure. So I did a lot of those types of training, and I definitely recommend them. In terms of working with Azure, I also found like the Microsoft Learn documentation super helpful. And so again, just those are the key ones for me. LinkedIn Learning, a cloud guru, and Microsoft Learn.
Okay. And I just I put in your links. So put that you showed me earlier, like your LinkedIn, your blog, your YouTube channel. Put those in the chat for anyone who's interested in following Jade or subscribing to her YouTube. And then we got another comment from Steven says, "Can we be honest that Nate can't really read?"
Yeah, I mean, I'm just the best at bullshitting that there is. Let's be honest, right? Like, it doesn't matter the situation that you put me in. You can put me in a room with anybody, and I can get my way through it. But you ask me to read something, I'll feel like I don't know where I'm at. I got through college by nonsense, 100%. So,
Oh, man. Hey, he promised to deliver at the beginning of the chat, so he had to. He had to.
No, I appreciate it. So Jade, I mean, we put your links up in the comments, like Joe said. So LinkedIn, your YouTube, and your blog. But take a second and like tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel. Like throw out what it is so people can go search it. Tell us a little bit about it, and then what your blog is. And I'm sure it's about DevOps, but kind of what it's about and what your goal is with it.
Yeah. So basically, I started posting consistently on LinkedIn around July, and since then I started branching off into both YouTube and my blog posts. But all of my content is really so focused on either software engineering, DevOps, or Agile. So it's all about like trying to help new software engineers that are coming into the industry understand the importance of how they come across to potential companies and how to help them like upskill in software engineering, but as well as that also like how to then develop solutions in a consistent, reliable and testable way. And so I'm trying to instill the best practices that I've learned over the years onto other people by creating training content, by creating blog posts with training content as well, so that other people can take what I have learned over the years.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I'll have to go check them out. I mean, all this is like news to me, so I'm excited to go see them and look at them and all that. But Jay, I mean, we're coming up close to time. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Do you have any questions for us or anything?
So I think the last thing we haven't really talked about the people side of what I deem like quite important when working with a team, and it's just about basically you cannot, as if you want people to go with you on a journey, you cannot tell them how to do something, you cannot force them to do it. You need to show them the benefits of it, you need to try and convince them of why they should do it, but also you need to work with them to see what their pain points are. And the most important thing is that it doesn't matter if they don't work in the way that you want as a facilitator. What matters is you get them to where they need to go, and it's about you. If you are facilitating a team, wearing various different hats depending on what the team stage at. So sometimes a team needs someone who is going to tell them, okay, this is what to do. So when I've come in before and I've had to do training on Scrum and on Agile, they kind of needed me just to say, I recommend you do this for now. And then if they start, like after a few weeks, pushing back, that's great because they've started to get confidence in the fact that they have an opinion, they know what they're doing. Whereas sometimes they need a little bit of direction. Sometimes they already have quite strong opinions and you just need to step back and just let them lead. Sometimes you just need to be the devil's advocate for the various different people in the room to get them to agree on something. What's important is it's not about what you want, it's about what the team wants.
Yeah, I think so. Leading people is such an unappreciated skills. I've worked for some great leaders. I've worked for some terrible leaders and stuff like that. But I think in my past, the best leaders are able to look at the people that they have, and they don't demand. They show you the vision. They give you a reason to buy into the vision, and then they let you decide. Like, hey, this is the value. This is the vision. This is why we're doing it. Come along. Right. And then if they've done that well enough, usually the response is, yeah, let's fucking do it. Right. Excuse my language, but like, let's do it. But I've also worked with some people who are like iron fist, like you have to do. And it's such a massive, like, it leaves a gross taste in your mouth. You don't want to do it. You're going to find a way to work around it and everything like that. Leadership, and a lot of what you're explaining is leadership. Like you are helping coach people and get them to, you're helping elevate their weaknesses, right, to give them the confidence to produce at a higher level. That is what leadership ultimately should be, right, is getting the most out of your team and optimizing. I was asked on an interview years and years ago, do you prefer to be coached or do you prefer to be taught? And my response was around Sean Marion. I doubt either one of you know who Sean Marion is, but if you are, I would be crazy surprised. He had a weird ass shot, right? He's in the NBA, great 3-point shooter, but his shot was awful. But a coach somewhere along the way, instead of changing his shot and changing who he is as a player, took his shot and helped him perfect it, right? Helped him become efficient with that shot. Now, is there a textbook jump shot? 100%, right? Elbow tucked, follow through, all that stuff. Jump forward when you go, elevation, all that, 100%. But instead of changing his shot, they elevated his shot. And the dude went to the pros, very athletic, great, good shooter, great corner shooter, and stuff like that. So to me, that is what leadership is like elevating the people, giving them the resources they need to succeed, and like having them buy into your vision. And it's such a big part of Agile, Scrum, all that stuff. Like you can't just go in and be like, you are going to freaking do this because I say.
Yeah. And a lot about, I'm sorry, I said a lot about Agile is you have to be flexible, right? Like one framework or one way of doing things doesn't work for everyone. So understanding that part and like Jade said, like letting them do it their way and just kind of guiding them along is a big part of it too.
Yeah. Sorry, I've gone blank now.
I've gone blank again.
So for me, real quick, I think that is the most important part. Understanding the frameworks and the processes of DevOps and all that is important, but you can know all that. And if you can't relate and elevate people, you shouldn't be in DevOps, right? Like there's a difference in understanding and practicing. So
I think the thing that is quite difficult or the thing that I've noticed is people look at the process and they don't realize it's not just about the process, it's about people, and the people side of it and the understanding of it. That isn't something that you can follow a process for, because it's all very contextual depending on what the team dynamics are, who the different types of skill sets in the team. So I can't say to someone, oh, you need to do this X, Y, and Z in order to get success, because X, Y, and Z for one team is going to be completely different results-wise in comparison to another team. So you really need to understand how the team work and what their skill sets are and what their personalities are like before you kind of say, okay, this is how we need to approach this at the moment.
Yep, I agree. And I think anytime you come into a new situation, the best thing to do is sit back and watch, right? Learn. What are their current processes? What are they currently doing versus just coming in and be like, guys, we're going to do this.
Yep. We're going to change everything.
Yeah. So, Jade, I feel like you're somebody that I could work with and, work for. Like, I like it. I like your process. I like your approach. I like the way you view people. I'm very much a people person more than anything else. So, like, I like that. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Anything else you want to talk about or throw out there before, we say adios?
No, that's everything. I just want to say thank you for having me. And, like I said, Joseph, we often have our weekly or daily bants on LinkedIn. So it's been great to have this time with you.
Yeah, for sure. Always enjoy it. But thanks everyone for watching, and y'all have a good weekend, and you as well. And again, Jade, thanks for coming on and talking to us about your passion.
Yeah, thank you, Jade. It was great talking with you.
And you too. Bye.